Um, so good morning to everyone. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to this CGIAR science talk. It's on science and innovation for resilient food systems in fragile and conflict-affected settings. My name is Katrina Kosick. I'm wearing many hats at the moment. I am the interim deputy director of the Food Frontiers and Security Science Program. I lead the area of work on fragile and conflict-affected food systems, and I am a senior research fellow at IFPRI, the International Food Policy Research Institute. So it's a pleasure to have you be here, whether you're joining in person or whether you're online. We think this is a really timely and important conversation. We know that from the Sahel to the Horn of Africa, from conflict-affected regions of the Middle East to crisis-prone areas of South Asia and Central America, food systems are currently under tremendous pressure. We are seeing right now how fragility, climate shocks, conflict, and displacement are driving hunger to new highs. And we know that these are not isolated challenges, they are systemic. By 2030, 2/3 of the world's extreme poor will live in fragile and conflict-affected settings. And that is why the CGIAR is investing in solutions where they are needed most. Through our Food Frontiers and Security program, we're expanding our reach to some of the world's most vulnerable, hardest to reach places. One of the core areas of work in this program, and the one we're really gathered to spotlight today, is focus on fragile and conflict-affected food systems. These are not just places where food is scarce, that are affected heavily by climate change. They're places where markets are disrupted, where institutions are fragile, where communities are often displaced, and people are facing this profound uncertainty about their futures. But even in these settings, we know that if we can harness them properly, food systems can be engines of recovery and resilience and hope. And research and innovation can help these communities to meet the urgent needs that they have. But they can also help them rebuild and rebuild more resiliently, more inclusively, more sustainably. And this is what CGIAR is doing with this program. We're forging new partnerships that you'll hear from many of these partners today. These include partners with government officials, with humanitarian actors, with local civil society, and the private sector as well. And we're seeing what's possible from these partnerships. These partnerships are well placed to design and scale science-based solutions that are adapted to these complex and fast-changing environments we're seeing today. And we're also seeing what's possible here from Nigeria to Niger, from Mali to Somalia and Ethiopia. The Food Frontiers and Security program is helping to strengthen local governance and to build early warning tools. And it's also supporting displaced populations. It's protecting livelihoods in the face of repeated shocks. So we know this work is important, but obviously it's not easy terrain for research. But it is essential, we argue. The science we're generating is already shaping better responses. These responses are ones that are rooted in evidence and that put local people at the center of finding these solutions. The innovations and collaborations and commitments that you will hear about today are a bold step forward, not just for CGIAR, but for how the global community approaches food security in fragile settings. I would really like to also show you, next slide, please. I'd like to show you some of the work we're doing. The Food Frontiers and Security program isn't about business as usual. Next slide, please. Thank you. It's not about business as usual. It's about doing science differently, working in places where others cannot, and responding directly to the needs of people experiencing fragility, conflict, displacement, and disaster. Next slide, please. Our area of work is grounded in a few key principles. First, we're co-creating solutions with communities and institutions who will use them. So we're not just asking what innovation is needed, but who will drive it and who will sustain it. Second, we're also building coalitions. And I would argue that today's event is one of those powerful demonstrations of the coalitions we have worked to build with our partners and are sort of essential in delivering anything on the ground. We know that these are the coalitions necessary for ensuring our work is relevant, but also for ensuring that it has enduring impact. Third, we're prioritizing evidence. So fragile settings are often understudied, and we're trying to change that. And that involves novel data collection efforts. It involves field work, rapid diagnostics, and tools that are specifically designed for low capacity and high risk environments. We're showing that rigorous research can be done in these difficult places and that it must be done if we're to guide policies, programming, and innovations that work. So the objective driving our work in CGIAR on fragile and conflict-affected systems that you can see here is to strengthen resilience and support long-term development in fragile and conflict-affected food systems by providing the tools, the evidence, and the guidance to solve these challenges, prioritizing inclusivity, sustainability, and the vital contributions of women and youth. And we see a lot of opportunities for science in this. We see opportunities to co-design sustainable livelihoods and durable solutions in conflict and displacement settings, to anticipate and prevent climate and disaster risks through anticipatory action and disaster risk reduction, to improve responses to polycrises with integrated food systems planning, to enable inclusive and sustainable recovery strategies, and to align emergency responses with long-term development and peace-building efforts to bridge, as we say, the humanitarian development peace nexus. Next slide, please. This slide displays many of the partners that are at the heart of the work in CGIAR on fragile and conflict-affected food systems. Our partnerships with government actors across ministries and across levels of government ensure that we have this demand-driven science that is informed by local realities. We also have key partnerships with international organizations that have been quite fruitful. For example, with the World Food Programme, since 2023 and through generous funding from the Norwegian government, we co-developed a portfolio of 29 research studies. And these were informed by identified learning gaps of World Food Programme country offices, regional bureaus, and headquarters. And our science has and continues to, in this way, assess the impact of World Food Programme initiatives and to provide the kind of strategic support that is needed for World Food Programme design. In an ongoing partnership with UNHCR, CGIAR is providing data and evidence to address climate and conflict-related risks. These are affecting over 120 million displaced people and host communities. And this work is really shaping UNHCR's strategies and global reporting mechanisms. CGIAR continues to evaluate their programming, deliver trainings, and support their efforts. Now it is time to hear from and engage with our partners, and we want you to listen, to question, to engage. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you for coming. I'd now like to turn the floor over to Martha Awino. She is our communications lead for the Fragile and Conflict-Affected Food Systems, for the Frontiers Science Program, and supporting us for the Fragile and Conflict-Affected Food Systems area of work. Over to you, Martha. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Good morning. Can you see me or can you just hear my voice? I'm here. Thank you so much for attending this session. And I believe seeing is believing, right? So I'm going to share a video that is highlighting CGIAR partnership in fragile and conflict affected areas. So have a look at it. Thanks.
We are the Fragile and Conflict-Affected Food Systems area of work under CGIAR's Food Frontiers and Security Science Program. We lead CGIAR's efforts to strengthen food systems in the world's most fragile places, where conflict, climate shocks, and forced displacement often intersect, and where the stakes are the highest. Our work spans all phases of crises, preventing and anticipating shocks, responding to emergencies, and supporting recovery and long-term resilience. By 2030, nearly 2/3 of the world's extreme poor will live in fragile settings. That makes this work essential. We don't work in isolation. From national governments to humanitarian agencies to NGOs, our partners are at the heart of everything we do. Together, we co-design research, tools, and solutions, ensuring they're grounded in local realities and built for real-world impact. We're proud of the work we've done together. Let's hear from our partners now.
CGIAR has become our most important partner for research and analysis regards to climate change. And that's mostly because our expertise, which is mostly on displacement, on protection, and our operational presence really matches perfectly with what CGIAR can offer in terms of their expertise on land, water, and food systems, but also in terms of their research capacity, their focus on innovative solutions. And we're especially welcoming the focus on fragility and conflict.
We're very happy with that collaboration we had with CGIAR. I mean, great experience overall. And I think I would point to several things that make that collaboration so important to us in WFP. First is the choice of topics, co-creation, co-production. It's we've been working hand in hand with CGIAR to develop that package. And those key topics were very critical to WFP in terms of evidence production. We've been working with CGIAR on transforming the food system. We've been working on supporting the smallholder farmers to being production and livelihood and resilience, and that includes issues of cash plus, for example. And again, not named there, but social protection was an emerging area where WFP needed to produce a lot of evidence, and it was added on top of that across those pillars. So very much a flexibility of that co-creation.
Now here comes the creativity. What are the options for creation and finding alternatives for such kind of interventions?
It really increased our community engagement. CGIAR's established relationships with communities in Jordan helped us understand their specific needs and challenges, and that led to critical design improvements in Stream that makes our technology more user-friendly and adaptable and accessible.
The key thing is not only investing, but it's also about ensuring the sustainability of all those investments. This really requires evidence, decision-making based on the evidence, and also putting adaptive learning in place.
The research to look at if building the capacity of women through training would empower them and build their agency and give them a voice. And so we had this partnership in which there was provision of technical insight, so beyond funding, provision of technical insight and respect and recognition of Action Aid's experience over the years.
If we can have more and more joint programs where our comparative advantages are clearly spelled out, that the left hand can do this and the right hand can do this, I think it will be super important.
Great, thank you so much. With those invigorating messages from our partners, we'd like to turn over to our first panel discussion. I pass to my colleague, Joyce Maru from SIP. Joyce, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. I'll just invite my panelists to the front, Dr. Seten and Dr. Joyce. You can come and take a seat at the front, please. So thank you, Katrina. My name is Joyce Maru. I work for the International Potato Center, the Regional Director for Africa, but I'm also part of this program on Food Frontiers and Security Science program of the CGIAR. So for this segment, we really want to drill down on some of the examples of the work that the CGIAR is doing under these conflict and, fragile settings by looking at examples of some of the work that's happening in Ethiopia. There's another panelist who's just coming in. Mohammed, please come to the front. Some of the work that's happening in Sudan, and also listening to some of our scientists in terms of how they see the CGIAR contribution to some of these efforts. So I'm just going to start with introducing the panelists first. I think that's very important. Mother, if you can move the slide forward, please.
So these are the panelists that we have. We have Joyce Takandiasa. She's a research scientist from the Alliance for Biodiversity International. Welcome, Joyce. We have Mohammed Salah. He's the general manager for Was Trading Company Limited.
Yeah.
Sudan, we've been working together. He'll tell us a bit more about that. Welcome, Mohammed, and sorry about your delays. We'll give you time to breathe, and then you'll be able to talk. We won't put you under pressure.
Sorry, I have to run.
Yeah, sorry about that. And we have Dr. Seten. He's a country manager for SIP in Ethiopia, and he's been working very much leading some of the work that's going on in conflict-affected areas of Ethiopia in Tigray and Amhara region. He'll be telling us a bit more about that. We also have our panelist, Dr. Veronica Parkinson. She's online. I hope you can hear us, Veronica. She's a senior researcher and also working with the Resilience Local Food Supply Chains Alliance. Are you there, Veronica?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Perfect. Good morning. Welcome to the panel. So we'll make sure maybe we'll keep checking that you're there. In case of any problem, just drop us a text online in case you drop out. So let's start with Seten. And Seten, I would like you to maybe speak about the work you're doing in Ethiopia and tell us mainly on what you see as the major contribution of the CGIAR's research and innovations to making these more impactful. You have 3 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Joyce. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, actually, our work before I go into the contributions, just briefly the context of Ethiopia in the past couple of years. As most of you know, the country has been facing several challenges, including drought, floods, armyworm, locust damage, conflict, and of course also the COVID-19 pandemic that has disrupted the agricultural activities, weakened markets, and also shattered livelihoods, and where farmers in those areas, in those affected areas, have lost their assets and the productive inputs, including seed. So it was with this background that we were designing and implementing crop emergency response with roots and tubers, mainly with potato and sweet potato. The main interventions in terms of our contribution was the first one was to improve the affected communities have access to resilient and nutritious crops and varieties. In addition to the direct seed distribution, we used to support the or strengthen the local seed system as we have to link the emergency response to the long-term agriculture development. So we have been supporting the early generation seed supply system, the the certified quality declared seed supply system, working with community-based private sector and so on. So that was the first contribution. And the second area was improving, enhancing the capacity, the knowledge, and the skills of farmers and those who serve farmers in the areas of improved agricultural production practices. So we have been demonstrating technologies that could address some of these challenges. For example, in the area of seed storage, in the area of water harvesting and related irrigation practices, such as the drip irrigation, solar pumps, and also the silage making technologies also for the to address the problem with the livestock feed. And the third area was improving skills and knowledge on the utilization, the utilization of these crops, particularly taking into account the most vulnerable groups, such as mothers, children under 2, and so on. And the last one, the last area of our intervention was supporting the local institution and enterprises that provide inputs and services to these affected communities. So these were the main areas where we have been contributing through the agricultural response interventions.
So just to follow up on that, why are these innovations of the CGIAR? Why not anything else? Why do we do sweet potato when it comes to addressing conflicts or responding to conflict affected communities?
Yes, there are some, there are of course obviously reasons why these technologies are preferred. And the first one, for example, is the inherent nature of these crops, that they mature early. So farmers have access to food in about 90 days. For example, that was one of the reasons. And second, also the drought tolerance, because most of these, crises have been, there has been an overlap of crisis. So you may have conflict and drought together. So these are resilient crops that can perform with less inputs and modest care. So this makes this technology suitable for such situation. And also, for example, the orange flake sweet potato, as you know, it's a nutritious crop. And one of the challenges communities face is the malnutrition problem, for example, is also rampant in, let's say, in among the internally displaced people or in a refugee setup. So it addresses the challenges also related to malnutrition, for example, the vitamin A deficiency among children, among pregnant and lactating mothers and so on.
Okay, and one very last question, I'll still come back, but Ethiopia has been one of the success cases in terms of some of this work responding to conflicts. What's the one lesson that you can be shared to other countries, or as we take this work forward, what's the one major lesson from your implementation that you can share with everybody?
Yeah, actually, there are several lessons that we have learned from these interventions. For example, the importance of the direct seed distribution. It addresses the immediate need of the affected households, but it has also a multiplier effect. So if you provide planting materials of these resilient and nutritious crops, then through the spillover effects, additional tens of thousands of farmers could benefit through the seed distribution channels that are used, that are commonly practiced. The other very important lesson we have learned, operating in an environment, for example, in a conflict, in an area where there's an active conflict is not easy. So what we have learned is that investing in the capacity of local partners, for example, is very important, because like as a CG centers, we often have a travel restriction. For example, you don't travel into the field to monitor or to provide technical backstopping. So investing in the local capacity has proved it's really paying. Yeah, so that could be one important lesson that I can mention.
Thank you so much. So I'll come over to you, Joyce, now, and just as a follow-up in terms of what CETEN is submitting about the importance of building local capacities for sustainability and resilience. So what else would you talk about in terms of how we can better engage the local communities in your experience? Yeah.
Thank you very much. So when we talk of engaging communities in climate adaptation, particularly when you look at it from a conflict perspective, because of the resource scarcities that climate change is imposing on different communities, obviously the issue of co-designing and consultation with local communities is very key. When you talk of issues like early warning systems, when you talk of adaptation strategies, they are not going to be successful if you don't involve their local or traditional knowledges. And that means we have to prioritize their ecological traditional knowledge that they've used over the years, over the decades, and then interface it with the scientific knowledge that we are bringing in as scientists. So inclusion from the very onset in terms of what they know, in terms of what their practices are. They are better in sync with their realities on the ground more than we are as scientists. And so the issue of not only co-designing, but also co-implementing the solutions that we bring to them, co-researching with them, and also participatory approaches in whatever intervention that we go with into the communities is key for successful adaptation. Thank you.
Great. Just to follow up very quickly, you know, I think most of the time, some of the challenges in terms of building resilience in this setting is the preparedness. So we often caught unaware, so we spend time trying to be quite, you know, just responding to the immediate need, and then we never build resilience, and then we have all these cycles back and forth. Yeah. So how do you think with communities or we can work with the partners on the ground to be better prepared and maybe have more sustainable action that can always help with the next cycle as we anticipate?
So one of the very important things as we prepare and as we respond to the climate-related challenges is early warning systems. And not only scientific early warning systems, as I have said, but also when we co-design with those communities and prepare anticipatory action planning with the communities. And one of the tools that we have from the climate security perspective is we do what we call conflict sensitivity planning. We do conflict hotspot mapping, and that informs us in advance of areas where we can have conflict arising because of resource scarcities. And we have also informed policy in terms of informing and working with the government. For instance, in Kenya, we were invited to give input into the National Climate Change Action Plan, which is running from 2023 to 2027. And this is where we have managed to mainstream climate security issues so that at least, even from a policy perspective, governments, stakeholders, all relevant stakeholders are capacitated to be able to identify potential risks, to deal with them before they actually happen. So we have informed a lot of policies. We also inform donors in terms of our evidence generation and our evidence, the research that we do. Because when we do that research, we are then able to tell what are the prevailing climate security risks. And then we are able to share with donors, we're able to share with governments, we're able to share with the different stakeholders in terms of the actions that they need to take before conflict, escalates. And then also in terms of looking at it from a migration and displacement perspective, we've done a couple of researches across different countries, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, Kenya, where we are trying to see if resource scarcities and if displacement is causing tensions between the communities and between those people that are on the move, so that we are better able to inform of solutions. We've looked at access to finance for refugees in Jordan, for example, through the invitation of the WFP, where we have realized that refugees, for instance, are interested in investing in climate smart agriculture, but they lack access to that finance. And those are some of the researches, some of the evidence generation that we're giving out so that we inform policymakers and we inform our partners. Thank you.
Excellent. So I like that point about the CGIAR's role in terms of generating critical scientific evidence or data-driven evidence for policy formulation. That's very important. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you, but I hope now my guest Mohammed is well settled and ready to talk. I would like you to maybe share with us an example of how you've been doing it in Sudan and how the partnership with CGIAR has worked, and especially the role of private sector, because I know you're coming from the private sector setting, which is quite unique as well.
Morning, everybody. I'm sorry for being late. I'm not familiar to Nairobi. This is the reason I was late. I'm from the private sector. We are an agricultural company, and we are working in potato sector and sweet potato. We start our relation with CGIAR after the war started, after the conflicts. And the war started immediately after the harvesting in our country. And most of the farmers, they lost everything. Because of the war, they lost everything. Their crop, their seed for the coming season, because they used to keep their seeds for the next season from their own production. And fortunately, we get in contact with SIP and CIMIT and other organizations, and they secured for us, and they help us to import new seeds, imported seeds from the Netherlands. And it was not easy. It was very difficult. But with the contribution with those organizations, we could be imported and distributed to the farmer in time, and they planted in time. Also regarding the sweet potato farmer, also they have faced the same things. And yeah, these two crops, they have like good contribution in the food security in Sudan after the war, because consumer behavior is completely changed after the war because of the lack of everything and insecure areas. We start planting in Kassala, which is new area for potatoes, but it is a safe area. And also River Nile State and North State. All the three states are safe. And yeah, we start also, we got like, I'm a little bit confused. This is my first time a farmer. Yeah, in my experience with those organizations, the new approach with the create, I mean, in the conflict in Sudan, the new approach with the great sustainable impact through the partnership with those CGIAR. This has come through technology transfer, and the technology transfer by the improved seeds and the best utilization of fertilizer, and also the post-harvest losses by building cold storage. It was very good also for the farmer and for the food security in the country. Also the good agriculture practices. The farmer, they didn't use fertilizer in some areas, but after this, they got a chance to have it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I wanted you to talk a little bit more about what you mentioned about food production in the safer areas, like the Nile and Kassala, and then making sure then that food can make its way to the areas that are affected by conflicts. How is that experience? What needs to happen? Is it working well in Sudan, and what are the challenges?
Yes. Yes, this is the only areas supply the areas with the conflict, and it was a good push for the food security in the country, because suddenly war started and everything was lost it. And the only thing is in that area just to supply with potatoes and sweet potatoes. And it's become the main food for the people in the conflict areas.
Thank you, and great to hear about the social behavior change in times of no food. People will eat what's available. So we need to be confident about these innovations and try to push them to communities. Thank you very much. So Dr. Veronica, are you still there? can you hear us?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Yes, so your intervention around the resilient local supply chains and how that relates to fragility and resilient building. Over to you, please.
Thank you. I am Verona Parkinson, based in Mozambique. Yeah, the short supply chains have gained increased global attention due to their potential to enhance food security and nutrition, sustainability and resilience, especially in the context of global crises such as pandemics, trade disruptions, climate change, and fragile or conflict-affected settings. Policy interventions at the global, sub-regional, and national levels play a pivotal role in fostering the development of short supply chains, aligning with broader global sustainability goals, such as those outlined in the SDGs, and the policies also complement the mission of the CGIAR. Modern supply chain has become a strategic battleground as governments and businesses navigate an era of heightened geopolitical tensions, resource and labor constraints, civil strife, regional conflict, and frequent utility disruptions. In a world that is growing more fragmented and unpredictable, organizations, supply chains, and governments must adapt to meet their value proposition targets. So how does the Resilient Local Food Supply Chains Alliance fit into all of this? The Resilient Food Supply Chains Alliance emerged from the UN Food Systems Summit and focuses on 3 key pillars for building resilient local food supply chains. And these pillars are 1, building resilience by strengthening local economies and food systems to better withstand global shocks such as pandemics, economic crises, and climate disasters, particularly in conflict or unstable environments. Second pillar is promoting food and nutrition security, supporting local agri-food production, processing, and consumption. And this reduces reliance on international suppliers, strengthens local economies, and creates more jobs. And the third pillar is sustainable and resilient local food supply chains that focuses on food system governance, the role of women and youth, livestock, fisheries, post-harvest losses, and food waste reduction. These pillars are supported by 3 primary objectives. The first objective is on advocacy and partnerships. By mobilizing global and regional partners to build sustainable partnerships, convening state and non-state actors for effective policy development, promoting consumer choice, and identifying job opportunities, especially for marginalized groups, to raise their income potential. Collaborating with partners to secure funding for capacity building initiatives, including the empowerment of women and young entrepreneurs to improve their business skills. The second objective is to facilitate peer-to-peer knowledge sharing, promoting peer-to-peer knowledge sharing expertise and experiences across countries, including South-South triangular cooperation. Organizing peer exchange field visits to allow partners to learn about programs and policies that target market inefficiencies, enhance food governance, reduce post-harvest losses, and support conservation and marketing. Mobilizing scientific, academic, private sector, and financial experts to contribute to workshops highlighting advances in research and technology. And thirdly, to facilitate technical support to national and regional systems. And this involves identifying country priorities through scoping and learning missions for targeted technical assistance, supporting national actors in building capacity to develop and enhance policies and technical guidance for resilient
Thank you so
food
much.
supply chains.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear us?
And
hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Yes, so we can pause here, but we'll come back when time allows. I think that's an excellent contribution in terms of the contribution of these short supply chains and how they can help communities and government in times of shocks and other challenges that are happening every day. So we need to harness that. But I think mainly is to work at policy level and make sure that we are paying attention to that. Thank you so much. So for my panelists, we have about 7 minutes, and I'll give you 1 minute each to talk about. Then this is what we've been doing is just a drop in the ocean. And as we are seeing, we have crises. These crises are ongoing. So what would be your key recommendation in terms of what CGIAR should do better to be more impactful in these fragile and conflict-affected settings? So we can start here.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I think in crop emergency response, just delivering seed itself alone is not enough. So it's very important that from our experience that you have a basket of other options as you build resilience and restore livelihoods. So I think that's what is lacking. We often just focus on a single technology or two. So I think that is one of the areas. The other area is the extension service also need to be strengthened because it's a bit different from other areas, and the capacity of the local government institutions need to be enhanced so that they can effectively plan and respond to crisis situations. And finally, the market development part is very important also because there is a need to create demand and supply for these technologies and these crops so that prices are stabilized around the conflict-affected areas, and also that beneficiaries do generate income which they can reinvest in other sustainable coping strategies. And finally, if you allow me, it's also very important that we deploy low input, fertilizer, for example, has been one of the challenges for farmers to access because of price, because of unavailability. So the technologies that we deliver in such setting has to be, low input, climate smart technologies are needed, to enhance the adoption and also for the resilience building effort.
Thank you so much. What about Mohammed? Would you agree with what Seten says or something different to add on to that?
Yeah, I think I agree. And also I want to add already the CGIAR, they already help by buildings. Yeah, by buildings, tissue culture lab, which is going to to be the turning point in potato or seed production in Sudan, and also for potato production in Sudan, which is going to reduce, to give it in the reasonable price and in the good timing, where they need it, because imported seed always come late, and the winter in Sudan is very short. Therefore, I think it will be a big jump in the potato sector and the sweet potato sector in Sudan, and also by also adding added value by storage facilities This is also, I think it will be a big jump. And as I mentioned before, potato and sweet potato, it has become one of the main food security in Sudan.
Thank you. So yeah, thanks for highlighting the importance again of building local capacity sustainably, including infrastructure. Very important. Thank you so much. So from your research side, of course, I like your point on, preparedness but what else should we do better and faster?
For me, we are already doing much, but I think what we could do is to scale up on our research for data-driven solutions. We need to expand our research scope even into those areas that we are not traditionally researching on. For example, I like the fact that now the Food Frontiers and Security is going to be looking closely at urban and peri-urban food systems, because when you look at the migration and from the migration and displacement perspective, we see a lot of rural to urban migration, with many people coming into informal settlements, which again introduces a newer set of vulnerabilities and conflicts, because they are already resource scarcities. So for me, the issue of evidence generation is key, because it informs every other solution that then follows, after that. And then when you look at capacity building, I would want to recommend a situation where we do capacity building, not only at national level, but we scale it down to local level, right down to the, to the ground, because this is where the solutions come from. And this is where the people live with the everyday realities of what we are trying to solve. So for me, it's capacity building, it's scaling up on evidence generation, and of course, having inclusivity in terms of the early warning systems that we spoke about. And by inclusivity, I mean gender. Sometimes when you look at it, you find that there's disproportionate access to early warning systems based on gender. There's also disproportionate access depending on, a person's ability or disability. How inclusive are our early warning systems to persons with disabilities, to the youth, and to people that speak different languages, indigenous peoples? So I think for me, this is where we need to scale up. We are doing that, but we could do more in terms of scaling it up. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think we are running out of time, but we just have 1 minute to just summarize. I think the main key points coming from here is with the importance of evidence and data-driven approaches, especially for informing policy at national level and subnational level. I think the idea of also building capacities for sustainability, including the partners, but also local communities, is very, very important. And of course, our innovations and technologies that we keep coming up with from all other science programs, apart from this, we need to really have those connections and that understanding that you said not one solution can do the job. So we need like a menu of options for the communities to be able to build resilience. So I want to thank you so much and ask my audience to join me in thanking you for this contribution. And back to you, Katrina.
Me, right?
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. It's fine. Good morning. Okay. Again, I think thank you for joining us for this session. So we'll continue with another exciting session. So my name is Kibrom Abai, and I'm a senior research fellow at the International Food Policy Research Institute. I'll be moderating the next session. The next session is another exciting session, and it's a session about whether we can predict the next crisis, or particularly the next food crisis. And my colleague Yan Liu from the International Food Policy Research Institute, who is a senior research fellow with IFPRI, will talk about new tools and methods to predict the next food crisis. And it seems she's going to tell us there is a possibility to forecast and predict the next crisis. So Yan, you have about 7-8 minutes. And after that, we'll have about 10 minutes for Q&A. And if you have any questions for the previous panelists, keep them with you. We'll we'll try to accommodate them. So Yanan, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you, Kibram, for the nice introduction. So next slide, please. Thank you for this opportunity to present our work on predictive modeling of food crisis using real-time risk indicators. It's a joint effort with my colleagues at IPRI, UNICEF, and the University of Maryland. Next slide, please. Our goal is to predict the food crisis as identified by Integrated Food Security Phase Classification (IPC) measures of acute food insecurity using passively collected big data. The IPC is considered the gold standard for assessing acute food insecurity and is widely used by humanitarian and development organizations, so it's crucial to make it right. Data collection for IPC is costly and often difficult, particularly in fragile and conflict-affected settings. Recent advances in remote sensing have enabled access to large passively collected datasets that correlates with risk factors of acute food insecurity. This development makes it possible to monitor risk factors in real time and predict food crises in a timely manner and at lower cost, and in hard-to-reach conflict zones. Next one, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our data, now I'm talking about data. Our unit of analysis is area months. Our sample contains about 5,600 observations across 1,200 areas in 29 countries from 2016 to 2022. We have two key outcome variables. One is the overall IPC phase, ranging from 1 to 5, with 1 being minimal and 5 being famine. And the other outcome variable is percentage of population in IPC phase 3+, which is considered as severe acute food insecurity, also suggests the need of urgent action. Next one, please. We have compiled 181 predictor variables from multiple sources, including climate conditions such as rainfall, temperature, soil moisture, geographic and agroecological conditions, as well as economic factors such as food prices, land productivity practices, economic growth, and infrastructure gaps. We also have indicators capturing the nature and intensity of conflict. Next one, please. Our forecasting model is a widely used machine learning model, gradient boosting algorithm. We used 2022, the last year's data, as testing site to evaluate our model performance. And we use the previous data to train our model. Our model incorporates predictors from secondary data, just explained before, and also the historical IPC outcomes. Our forecast horizon is 3 to 12 months ahead. Next one, please. Next, we talk about our model performance. When we use the outcome variable of percentage of population in severe food insecurity, that is phase 3 and plus, the out of sample R square is 0.25. This is reasonably high because the outcome variable is continuous variable. We also have high sensitivity, which means 94% of severe cases can be correctly identified by our model. Sensitivity is probably the most important indicator from a policy perspective because it captures a model's ability to identify locations that need urgent action. Our precision stands at 78%. suggesting that 78% of the cases predicted to have severe food insecurity indeed experienced it within next 1 year. High precision implies low resource leakage if the model is followed by to guide resource allocation decisions. So precision is also an important indicator from the policy's perspective. In terms of accuracy, our model can correctly predict the IPC phases among 85% of the cases. Next one, please. We also analyze the feature importance. The top predictor of acute food insecurity is food price volatility. This is followed by infrastructure gaps, poor economic growth, and weather conditions. Conflict is also an important factor. Using simulation, we found that a 10% increase in conflict intensity would imply that 31% of stress cases IPC2 are pushed into crisis or worse, IPC3 and plus. Next one, please. Next, can this predictive model be operationalized for food crisis monitoring? Our findings suggest that forecasting food crisis using real-time risk factor monitoring is feasible. This approach can reduce costs by decreasing the frequency of IPC assessments. It's complementary for the IPC assessment. It can also support timely prediction on IPC in conflict-affected and fragile settings. We believe our predictive model offers a promising tool to support early warning and early action mechanism for addressing food crisis. Next one, please. In terms of future research, it can go to at least 3 directions. First, we can improve the model performance and coverage by incorporating more granular IPC consistent data such as FCAS. Also, we can develop predictive models using similar approach for other food insecurity outcomes from high-frequency data sources, such as Kenya's NDMA early warning system data and high-frequency phone survey data from the World Bank. Using those data can better tailor the predictive model to local context. Also, we are interested in going beyond prediction to understand causality because that is key for designing effective interventions. Next one, please. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yan Yan. So the IPC is widely used by many humanitarian organizations, and getting it right and maybe even ahead of the curve is crucial. So what you presented is quite promising. With that, I'm happy to invite questions to Yan Yan or to the previous panelists. Yes, we have got a question from WFP. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kibrom, and thank you, Yan Yan, for the presentation. I have a question on the presentation you just made, several questions actually. At what level do you make your predictions? Is it, for example, if it is Sudan, is it at the locality level, state level, or national level? Because we need it at as lower level as possible for response. Have you checked the model? I have several. I think I'm going to ask you together and then you can respond.
Yeah.
Have you tested the model for accuracy? I know you mentioned the percentages, but at what level did you test it for accuracy? Is it at the district level, at the lower level, or is it at the national or state level? Where do you get your food price data? Like at what scale? How is the coverage of the food price data? And you mentioned conflict intensity. what is the source of your information? I'm sorry, I'm dominating a lot of questions, but we are really trying to do the same thing you're trying to do for Sudan, especially as the lean season approaches. And I am genuinely interested. Wait, maybe I can contact you directly.
Maybe we collect a couple of questions and then you address them together. Go ahead.
Okay. Should I answer this question or should I waiting for more?
Can we collect a few more questions and then you address them together, Yan?
Okay, good. Thank you.
Hello. I have a question. This way? Okay, thank you. I have a question. When you are collecting the data sets, the data for coming up with the models, right? Where do you get your data, as she's asked? Because as an African, there are a lot of data are Western centered. We don't have enough data that can go to the local level and address the realities of most Africans. So where do you get your data and how accurate are your data? And when you're creating the models, are they addressing the reality on the ground? Because you can create a nice program, but when you implement it to the people who need it, there's always a gap. So how do you bridge that gap?
Thank you. Maybe over there. Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm Murtada Kamal from Summit, Sudan. And my question is just that for the private sector, because the model being implemented by the CGIAR centers in Sudan during the last season, I think it has to be the best lesson learned, where they engage not only in the engagement, the partnership with the private sector. That was my question for both of them, for the CGIARs and the private sector. How can we improve this? Because for the first time we see that the private sector is engaged not only in just, as Ben mentioned, distributing the seats only. This is not enough. It was a package, technological package, implemented by the private sector, and even not only and monitored by the IRC and the CGIAR center. So I think this model, how can we engage the multi-stakeholders, or because also it's called, maybe it's the risk-sharing model in improving the food security in the country. Thank you.
We can take two more questions. Yeah, and then you. Maybe third one, yeah. Okay, brief ones so that she can cover them quickly. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Mohammed. I'm a computer science student from the University of Nairobi. My question goes to Mr. Setegen Gebeyehu. You mentioned that one of the approach that you use in conflict-affected areas is to build local capacity. And one of the things we know in in areas affected by prolonged conflicts is complete destruction of the education system. And most of the people are illiterate. I can take as an example, my great country of Somalia. It has gone from having the second highest literacy rate in Africa to one of the lowest literacy rates. And that's what a prolonged conflict can do to a country. So
can you make it a brief? Sorry.
Yeah. So how does this affect the adoption of the technologies and innovations in conflict-affected areas?
Okay, thanks. You can use this.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. I have a couple of questions. One to the previous panel.
If you can limit to one.
To one, okay. Let's see which one is more important than the. Okay. Well, to this one. My name is Bashir Jama, and I am right now leading an ultra-local NGO called Africa Pastoralist Empowerment Organization in the drylands of northeastern Kenya. Quick question on these predictions. I see it's at a national level. But food security is also achieved through regional interventions, through private sector engagements at the regional level. When supplies are running down, the private sector actively responds by sourcing it from elsewhere. And so on balance, you may think the country is stuck with its own production. And to what extent does your model take into consideration regional dynamics, food balances across countries, and movement of food from one country to the other? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So maybe Yan, if you can use 2 minutes to respond to whatever question you can. Some of the questions are interest, and we'll connect you with those interested. If you can take 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and then the previous panelists can take 1 or 2 minutes so that we can be on time. Go ahead, Yan.
Okay, thank you very much for those questions. First of all, let me address the data access, because more than one researchers audience has raised this question. So all of our data are collected from public available data sources. And in our paper, we have listed all the data and the link how to get those data in our paper. And after it's being published or later at a later stage, we will release all the data and also the access to this data. And some data are collected also in African countries. We know that the data is relatively less available, but we can use some remote sensing data. And this data is like EVI data as GoSafe GPP to capture agricultural production and land productivity. The food prices data come from 2 sources. One is WFP and the other is FAO. We use both indicators. And the conflict data is from ACLED. And so in terms of at which level our research is conducted, this data we from IPC system. So it's a subnational. It's either at admin level 1 or admin level 2, depending on different countries. So I understand that it's a very good question that we want the data to be more granular, has higher spatial resolution, right? But it's limited by data sources. So that's why I mentioned one direction at the end of the presentation of future research. We want to incorporate other more granular data such as FieldNet data, which is IPC consistent, to improve this model and make it more have focus on more local conditions. And another direction of research, future research, is we can use some within country data, within national, such as the Kenya NDMA, the NDMA data that's collected at the, I think at the sub-district level. I have used this data, which is also more tailored to local contexts. So what is
Yan,
okay.
maybe we stop there. I can see there is a lot of interest. We'll connect you with those interested. Setain, do you want to use 1 minute to reflect on the questions that? Just 1 minute.
Hi. Yeah, actually, our experience, is not really very much related to prolonged kind of conflict. But obviously, when conflict or any type of disaster is prolonged, then it can cause disruption and the collapse of services and input, obviously. And it can make recovery efforts also very difficult. So when we say local capacity, it's not just farmers. We are also referring to local extension agents, local health extension workers, and even small private sectors operating in the areas who are involved in seed multiplication or input supply system. So that was what we meant by local capacity building, not just the farmers alone.
Thank you, Seth. And with that, I'll stop here and then hand over the mic to my colleague, Sandra.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this session. You can see we've got an incredible amount of material to get through and some fantastic partners with us here today. So I'm going to jump right into this second panel we have here. The frame for this panel, and if you don't mind, actually, panelists, I didn't consult you on this in advance, but I'm going to go into the questions, and when I ask you your first question, you can introduce yourself the way you prefer, and we will do it that way so that we can stick to the time we have for a panel of 5. So let's see, the core question for this roundtable is, how can partnerships between research institutions, governments, humanitarian actors, and communities help scale solutions that are evidence-based, equitable, and resilient, particularly in fragile and crisis-affected contexts? So we're very fortunate to have some excellent field experience here on the panel with us today from humanitarian agencies, folks with experience in the field, and also we are very fortunate to have representation from the Kenyan government. We'd like to thank you for hosting us this week. So to get right into those questions and how this will work, by the way, we do have a panel of 5, and we've got some tough questions or good questions that everybody received in advance. We'll stick to 2.5 minutes each, and I'll signal to you when we're reaching time. All right, just so we can give everybody the chance to share their experiences. So first, Dr. Lynette Ochuma, I would like to ask you our very first question today. Kenya is advancing inclusive social protection to tackle poverty, climate risk, and livelihood instability. From your leadership position, how can research partnerships add value, not just in analysis, but also in building institutional capacity at the country level? Over to you, please.
Good morning. My name is Lynette Ochuma. I'm a director, currently the acting secretary at the State Department for Social Protection and Senior Citizen Affairs. Welcome to Kenya. So going straight to the question, social protection has really evolved over time in Kenya, and based on the context and the research that has been done, it has expanded and has come up with very innovative ways of addressing poverty and climate risks. We've worked with various researchers. We've worked with Oxford Policy Management. We've worked with IFPRI under the support of World Food Programme, World Bank, and other non-governmental organizations like Boma and Village Enterprise. So when it comes to research, research does not only provide evidence, but it also helps in institutional strengthening. One of the key values that research has offered to us as a government is in terms of knowledge sharing and transfer of skills, and this has helped in policy design. Recently in Kenya, we were able to review our social protection policy that we had in 2011. Now we have a social protection policy for 2023. Research has also helped us in terms of co-designing up with local solutions. We started social protection in the year 2004, and we've, based on the findings of the different researchers, we've come up with, we've co-designed and come up with local solutions based on the context. Like in Kenya, we have the semi-arid areas, and we've had to come up with social protection programs that are tailored for the ASAL areas based on the findings that we've gotten. Research has also helped us in terms of evidence-based planning and early warning systems. When we started our social protection, the social assistance, it was mainly cash transfer. But over time, we've been able to evolve, and we have anticipatory actions responding to the findings that we've gotten from the research. We also have networking and collaboration. We've worked very well with HIFPRI, we've worked very well with OPM, and we continue to work together. And this collaboration has really helped us. In terms of data sharing and interoperability of systems, because of research that we've done together, we've been able to come up with an enhanced single registry where we are able to feed in information of all the vulnerable households. We've also benefited from the technical expertise provided by the researchers, and therefore we are able to learn by doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ochuma. It's incredible to hear your examples of how these partnerships, and I mentioned research partnerships with your government, but also these partnerships with the humanitarian agencies that are represented at the table, these collaborations and how they work in real time provide extremely important lessons for us also as we consider how to implement the next stage of the CGIAR research portfolio. So thank you for those reflections. I'd now like to turn over to Nigest. I hope I'm pronouncing that. Nigest. Oh, goodness. This is why I need to ask folks to introduce themselves. I'm very, very sorry. Okay, so Nigest, if I could please ask you, operating in Sudan's volatile environment requires constant adaptation. How does WFP manage trade-offs between immediate response and long-term resilience, and what role could strategic research partnerships play in navigating these complexities more effectively?
Okay, thanks so much. So as you know, in Sudan, there is a lot of challenge of access. But despite these challenges, WFP has managed to continue to implement a lot of development work in addition to providing emergency assistance. For example, there is a local procurement that was done in 2024, which supported farmers producing locally with a wheat project. There is a wheat production project that produced wheat in the last season's agricultural season. This was done in partnership with the African Development Bank. There is a joint program in the Darfur where the conflict is intense. There is an enhancing resilience project with the World Bank and the community asset creation, which is supported by USAID. Most of these projects are implemented in the eastern, safer parts of the country. However, for example, the Darfurs, of course, are the areas with intense conflict, and we are also able to work in those areas and provide resilience-related work. So how we do that is by balancing assistance delivery with safety concerns. So most of the activities that used to take a very short time have now started to take very long time because we have to balance it. Delivering assistance or delivering resources to these parts takes a very long time because we need to negotiate with many actors along the way. We work with partnerships among NGOs, UN agencies, and local authorities, but increasingly more also with the private sector that have relatively better access to these conflict-affected parts of the country. We try to really avoid duplication of efforts and focus on like people should do what or agencies should work to try to avoid duplication of efforts because we can't afford to do that at this difficult time. Mm-hmm. We also trying to balance donor demands, for measurable attributes, attributable impact, which can sometimes conflict with operational reality of, working in a context like Sudan. And in this way, working with partners like CGIAR really help a lot. So this technical partnership help us in providing the relevant tools to collect the relevant information and analytical systems to ensure programmatic decisions are evidence-based. We also, so the evidence generated will help WFP to advocate. In addition to decision-making for programming, it will also allow us to advocate with our donors and governments and key stakeholders, including the beneficiaries. Yeah. Technical.
Thank you, Nigesta. If we can wrap up.
Okay. I think that's, so the main thing is by working with technical agencies like CGIAR, we have a very strong evidence-based to convince donors, to convince partners, also for decision-making within WFP. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nigesta. Perfect examples from the field about the importance of research to target programs to ensure effectiveness. And we're thankful for you sharing those examples with us. Nigesta is the head of vulnerability analysis and mapping for WFP in Sudan. So I will now move over to David from UNHCR. David, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself as well. So displaced and stateless people are often excluded from national development frameworks. How can CGIAR and other research actors support UNHCR's efforts to ensure that these communities are included in climate adaptation and resilience planning? Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sandra. My name is David Gidir Joroge, and I work with UNHCR, the regional office for East and Horn of Africa and the Great Lakes, covering 11 countries. Just in broadly, we are looking at around 5.5 million refugees who've been forcibly displaced and are hosted with this region. And we are all aware about the climate challenges that we are facing, or we continue to face: cyclic drought, cyclic floods coming up and then, and at the same time having a negative impact on these forcibly displaced. What we do as UNHCR, we are quite, we do have expertise in forced displacement and protection. And then we have CGIAR, who have expertise in research capacity, innovative solutions in climate peace and capacity. And what we are trying to see is how do we blend this together so that we are able to provide solutions for our forcibly displaced in this region. Mainly, how do we get this ahead? Our work with CGIAR is helping us to deepen our understanding of future climate-related threats and challenges specific to these displaced settings. And we're able to obtain evidence that we need to tailor our policies and inform our partners, such as the World Bank and the AFDB, to help them target their climate financing. And with this, we are able to include the refugees into the national systems, because a lot of this work that is done in the region, which is looking at climate mitigation, climate adaptation, is through governments or through development actors. And normally the refugees are out of that scheme. So basically, with the collaboration that we are having with CGIAR, we are able to get data that is able to tailor-make programming that is responsive to the forcibly displaced in the region. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, David. This is the gap in climate finance for these situations where refugees are hosted is immense. And I know a lot of people in this room are working on that issue and helping to fill that gap. And this here is an excellent example of how research partnerships like those we have together are helping to try to fill that gap. So thank you for sharing with us, David. So now I'm going to move over to Sheila. So Sheila, if you could introduce yourself and then tell us about this question. You've supported governments across East Africa in designing social protection systems. What conditions make research partnerships most effective in fragile settings, particularly when markets are thin or systems overstretched? Over to you.
Thank you so much for that question. So my name is Sheila. I am a regional social protection advisor for the World Food Program here in East Africa. So maybe to start, when we talk about social protection, we're talking about scale. That's the most important point to be made, because social protection systems are led by the government. And actually, these are significant systems that could really help us address some of the issues around food insecurity and malnutrition in the region. For instance, for example, I mean, even at our best as WFP, and that was in 2023, we only reached 160 million people globally with our cash and school feeding. But just thinking about cash transfers implemented by government, 1.4 billion people were reached at the same time. So I just want us to keep that in mind when we talk about social protection. Now, social protection also plays a very critical role across different sectors. So when we talk about food security, I think the biggest is access and stability. So even when there's conflict, if there's a program that is strong enough, people are still able to access food, especially if markets are functioning, okay? So social protection plays a critical role around that. Now, even when we say that, the key question when it comes to conflict is how do we sustain social protection delivery in context of conflict? And also very important, because sometimes governments are party to the conflict, how do we ensure conflict sensitivity? Because sometimes it's not acceptable. Actually, delivering social protection might result in more tensions. I'll give you an example. I mean, with the conflict in Tigray and Amhara, for instance, in Ethiopia, the PSNP, which is among Africa's largest social assistance program, had to be paused, okay? Because there's an issue between the regional government, but also the national government. So you see those issues coming up. So this question, I think, for CGIAR colleagues will be very important. Now, I think coming after that, we need to talk about how research can help us address this. I just want to give an example of our partnership with CGIAR in Somalia, where we did a research on the national program, the Bahnano program, to really start seeing the fidelity of the program, what are the impacts of the program. And based on that, we see that government is now designing the next phase of the Bahnano program, thinking about creating linkages with different services, health, education, WASH. So this is a good example of how this evidence has been applied in a context like Somalia where there's fragility. Now, what led to that, okay? And that's the question that we're addressing now. I think the biggest thing is joint priority setting and also research topics. The government's role is critical in all of this. If we're going to talk about scale, we can do all the research we want, but as long as government has not owned that research and has not been part of it and the priority setting, they haven't been involved, especially where they're present. I'm not saying in all cases. Where they're present, it's very important to ensure that they are involved, because they're the ones that will help us to really move this agenda along and reach as many people as possible. Another thing is really around the partners. How are we sharing data? Data is a very scarce thing, like really recent and current data is a very scarce thing in fragile environments, okay? But you know that we all operate in these environments. We all collect data from our beneficiaries. How are we sharing that data? What are the protocols? How are we protecting people? Because again, it's not just about data sharing. What are the data sharing protocols? What are the data protection mechanisms, even as we share that data? One thing I'll say about research, especially in these environments, I mean, I'm a naysayer. Personally, I'll say that. I'm a very strong naysayer about everything. So it's just how I am, okay? So I think operational research is one of the most powerful things I've seen. Being able to use existing programs to demonstrate how food systems can be strengthened, to demonstrate how social protection can be delivered in these environments, I think is one of those transformational things, because most of the times people will tell you we can't do this because of ABCD. But if there are different partners in the room, and of course CGIAR, we design programs that we can implement. People call them pilots, whatever you decide to call them, but being able to have operational research that follows those pilots or programs, I think that's most effective, and it helps government to really see by doing. I think Lynette spoke about that, learning by doing this programming. So I think those are the three things I'll talk about: the joint priority setting, the data, which is a key issue, but also importantly, being able to demonstrate these results and making sure that we are all in the room, because we are all key stakeholders in this. But even as I say that, disclaimer, make sure it's conflict sensitive, because sometimes we might end up fueling a conflict that would have otherwise died down. So I will say that and stop here.
Thank you very much, Sheila. Thank you for that. I think one of the things we're hearing as we talk about these partnerships and everything that goes into them is the matter of what we're trying to do together is to develop these models for investment, for scaling, as you said in the beginning, and therefore we require the evidence, we require solid collaboration to justify the scaling of those. So this is the value also of being together to talk about how to share in these collaborative efforts, and the data and the protection of that as we provide the investment case. So I'm now going to jump over to Alistair, and we're going to switch to a little bit of a different topic here. That's also very important. Alistair, you lead work on economic recovery and environmental degradation. So we haven't talked much about this yet on the panel, but it's extremely important to all of us conducting research on food, land, and water systems. How are partnerships advancing circular bioeconomy or nature-based solutions to ease resource stress in the context where you are operating? Over to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Alistair. I'm the head of programs for DRC in Kenya, Danish Refugee Council. And gosh, yeah, I mean, you really hit the nail on the head there, Sheila, around learning by doing. And this is kind of what we're trying to do. We're very much implementation focused as an implementing agency, identifying partnerships, identifying ideas, and then just trying them out. And I feel like some of our ideas, well, hopefully most of our ideas are research informed, and we draw from the recommendations that everyone writes and says, great idea, let's run with it. But I feel like quite often sometimes some of the learnings is not then passed back into some of the research that is being put in place. So for example, we do a lot of work around regenerative agriculture and resilience design, and it's very smart, and there's lots of good research to make sure that this works. But then in practice, it's very challenging because working in Turkana, for example, in northern Kenya, in Kakuma refugee camp, we're working with pastoralists and supporting them to develop agriculture solutions. And I think we've found that a lot of the research around is very good in terms of regenerative agriculture, but not so good in terms of the economic development and the livelihood piece. And so what we've been trying to do is draw some of this learning from what has worked around sustainable food systems, and then connect it to companies who have the sustainability piece in mind. And so we're developing partnerships with companies, local companies, that can work with the community groups so that there's slightly more sustainability, because we found that, again, working with communities, developing this approaches that work very well, unless there's a market, unless there's someone to buy the produce, unless there's sustainability, then all of these ideas stop the second the funding ends, which it does. And so I think, yeah, core to partnerships is sustainability, and we've been having discussions about this as well, and ensuring that not only the research that we're developing around regenerative agriculture is solid, but also is sustainable by design. And I think this is where companies come in, the private sector comes in, because they can pass this piece across. I think also we've been trying to work, we've all said it, community-led ideas. I think very often as well in this space, especially in the regenerative agriculture piece, there are these great ideas. We come in and go, hey, why don't you try this? That doesn't work because it's not ideas that have been led by the community themselves. Even if the research was informed by the communities at some point, it's developing ideas from the communities themselves and then saying, hey, this is a great idea that you developed yourself, it's completely community owned, and then connecting it to companies at the other side. So I think partnerships that are not just informed by communities, but managed, owned, led by the communities themselves is the way that we've seen to be the most successful, and then connecting them to companies as well. So there's sustainability in there. Thanks.
Wow, thank you very much, Alistair. This reminds me, there are a lot of sessions going on this week around innovation and scaling. This is also an important part of the Frontiers program under Area of Work 1. And the points that you're all raising actually point to the fact that we really need to bring it back to that area of work so that we can ensure that we're supporting these processes in the best way we can through these research partnerships. So thank you very much for that, Alistair. I am looking at the clock and I realize we are pressed for time, which I suppose we should have predicted because we're quite a large panel. So I'm going to challenge us to take only a minute to answer the second question that I wanted to ask each of you, because we wanted to give time to hear, we've got so many different areas of expertise at this table, but also across this room, we want to give a moment for Q&A, if possible, before we close out. So my next question is to Nigest. With traditional data collection under pressure in Sudan, what are some innovative tools or institutional partnerships that have helped WFP improve food security mapping or targeting? How might these evolve with research support? And if you can please keep this to a minute. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the first one is remote data collection via phone, where phone networks are working, but in Sudan, phone networks are not working, especially in the conflict-affected areas. So in those areas, we have actually moved back to face-to-face data collection, but we are now contracting private sector who have access to the areas that UN agencies or WFP cannot access, but we are collecting data face-to-face. We are increasingly more reliant on remote sensing data. And for regular monitoring, we're also, again, recruiting individuals to provide, for example, price data, just recruiting enumerators based on those areas. This typically used to be done by WFP staff in the past. We are also working more with, collaborating more with CGIAR, for example, to do using available data and also collecting new data, mostly through phone again, but to help us make decisions that are more useful for the beneficiaries. For example, cash versus food. That is something like, is it more beneficial to people? And this is in relation to the partners working with you guys. We also, so in data collection, in the past, we used to have generic data collection formats, but now we're very careful with the questions we ask because we cannot go out to the field to collect data again and again. So when we are able to go to the field, we try to focus on questions that really answer questions that really answer response or evidence-based programming or targeting. So we are very careful with the questions we develop. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigest. Thank you very much for that. And in the spirit of this rapid fire conclusion, David, if I could move to you. Your work at the intersection of humanitarian you work at the intersection of humanitarian and climate action. Can you share with us an example of how scientific research on water, land, or food has helped UNHCR shape programs for mobile or highly vulnerable populations? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think one question that I've had being asked here is how local, how specific, how granular are the models that are being presented here. Now, what we do, we work with a very specific group, the refugees. They're not just a general population. And our work with the CGIAR is generating evidence on displacement-specific climate hazards. And this has helped us to strengthen the risk monitoring, shape our approach, and also inform our advocacy in key climate action policy areas. I do have a list of what we've been able to achieve, but I'll just give one example. And this is on parametric insurance, which is targeting climate impact in some regions. I think we've worked with CGIAR to develop a project. And in Malawi and also now in Somalia, whereby parametric insurance is being applied for this specific group, the refugees. Also in advocacy, in policy, in other actionable evidence, in innovative financing. There are quite a list of projects or initiatives that we are working together on that. Thank you.
Fantastic, David. I'd like to comment on all these answers, but I want to get through everybody before I say anything. So I'm going to move back to you, Alistair. With growing water stress in refugee hosting areas, how can research partnerships help deliver water-smart, climate-resilient livelihoods?
with ideas. I think we need lots of ideas because it's a very complex situation that we're all working in. For example, we have a project in Mandera where you're working with pastoral communities that have been hugely impacted by the changing climate and ongoing conflict. So you have the conflict, climate, displacement nexus dynamics. And the traditional approaches to food, to water security just don't work so well. They're not fit for purpose. And so I think we're always looking for new ideas. I guess we don't have 5 years to do research, to have the ideas pulled from that research to be able to implement, because we need, we have communities impacted now. But my call to everyone is let's share ideas. Let's talk more. If anyone's got ideas in this space, then let's work together, because we're boots on the ground trying to implement with local partners. And this is where we can test some of the things, but we just need to speak more with research partners and have our activities research informed. So let's chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Alistair. Another good reason why we're all together this week. Sheila, last question to you. In your experience, what practical steps help ensure research agendas, whether with the CGIAR or others, respond to national government priorities and are structured to enable long-term uptake and scale?
Thank you. Yeah, as I said, I think the uptake and the involvement of different actors is very critical. But maybe one thing is to take it back a little bit. I think it's important to understand your context. So with fragility, even in the same country, you have like 5, 10 contexts almost. This is one country, and then you have different portions of different things happening in different places. So I think the basic one is really to understand the context. And on top of that, identify the key entry points. So for you to make the relevant progress in advancing some of these research outcomes is really having the right people in the room. So I think for me, the first one is really understanding where you are, understanding what is the entry point, what is the critical person that needs to be in the room, who is going to enable the scale up. Sometimes it's local people, sometimes it's national government, but as we've heard from Alistair also, it could be the community. So I think for me, it's just that answering that key question, who needs to take this forward and how, and which is really the context analysis and getting that entry point right. I think that's really the most important one. I have a list of 10, but I will not.
I feel like we should collect everybody's notes and email them out to the group afterwards, but no pressure. Okay, more ideas than we can even have time for, unfortunately. Dr. Lynette, I'd like to ask you the last question. Drawing from your long public service experience, can you share a case where integrating research early into the program cycle, design, implementation, or monitoring, has led to a better outcome for a government-led initiative? Over to you for that example. Thank you.
In a minute, I don't know that I'll manage. We have a story to tell. I'll give an example of our social assistance program. We started it way back in 2004 when we started with the orphans and vulnerable children, and this was done as a pilot. As a result of research, we felt that there was a lot of exclusion, and therefore we now have a cash transfer program for persons with disability, for older persons. And as we move on, currently we are doing the life cycle approach by ensuring that at every stage we have programs for the adolescents, we have programs for women, and we have programs for the youth. We've also scaled up. We realized that cash is not enough, and therefore we have cash plus programs under our Kenya Socioeconomic Inclusion program. So we have the Nutrition Improvement Cash and Health Education Program. We have our Economic Inclusion Program. These are programs that have come about as a result of the researches that we've done. So as we scale up to KSEP 2, based on the findings that we've had under KSEP 1 on the research that was done by OPM and IFPRI, we are now scaling up, and we are saying that we cannot do just economic inclusion alone or nutrition alone because of the covariant shocks that are there. And therefore, we are moving to a climate resilient economic inclusion program. We have a shock responsive programs and anticipatory action programs. These are all as a result of the findings and the learnings that we had from KSEP 1. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Dr. Lynette. I'm glad that you brought up anticipatory action at the end, because I think a lot of what we're talking about here, though we tend to focus on response, a lot of this does come down to prevention and adaptive investments early, right? So just to point out ideas and innovation, meaningful stakeholder and community engagement, scaling, and various financial solutions, access to finance, social assistance, insurance. This is part of the basket of solutions that I think we can continue to talk about over the course of the week as we think about how the research can help inform action, support investment in these areas, and promote integration across the humanitarian development peace nexus. So I will stop there. Sorry, we are quite over time. I'm going to turn over to Grazia. It's been an incredible panel. Thank you for taking the time to do this. There's just a tremendous amount of knowledge to share, and I hope we can continue the conversations after this panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Sandy. Thanks a lot for these fantastic insights. We'll be collecting now a couple of questions only, so please do raise your hand. We have one here. I want that. Perfect. Do we have a mic? Go around. There's the mic. Sorry. Yeah. We have. Do you have a question? Yes. Okay, so let's do 3 very quick questions to the point. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning. Yeah, so my name is Vina. I'm from Pioneer International University. And my question goes to David. And regarding the refugees, regarding funds and those sort of things, what is the future of these refugees now that there are some changes in the geopolitical landscape across the continent? And also, regarding local initiatives with politicians and political leaders, how do you navigate that when you have initiatives that you want to implement, and also maintaining the objectives of these organizations and these research institutions, and also regarding social aspects of the society, implementing these initiatives to social groups? How do you ensure that you maintain credibility, and also that the data is not compromised and taken over by probably these big research institutions? Yeah,
thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we have on this side, and this side, you can use maybe these mics. Yeah, thank you very much. Very quick. Thank you.
So greetings, everyone. My name is Calvin Minor. I'm a member of CYMG to UNEP under the chemicals and waste thematic. And also, I'm a student at Strathmore University. Currently, I'm a computer science student. And my question goes to the panel. I haven't heard anyone talking about food waste at all in all this research. When you come to think of it, there's data from the FAO clearly says that there's roughly 30 to 50% of food wasted in post-harvest. There's also 30% of food is lost in sub-Saharan Africa due to food wastage. And it's been particularly grieving not to hear anyone talking about food preservation and usage of cold chain solutions to try and reduce wastage, especially during this otherwise difficult global donor landscape. So I'd like to hear any insights from any of the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Last question. Go ahead.
I'm Mary Jenga. I'm a co-lead of the Refugee Hosting Engagement Landscape with C4ICRAF. And we've been working on nature-based solutions for resilient landscapes and livelihoods. And what we have found, we have worked with IMI, DRC, UNHCR, World Food Program. And one of the things that I haven't heard is about the cooking energy. Even when we talk about the economic stressors, I didn't hear it. And what we are finding is that refugees could have food, but if they have no cooking energy, they trade it or they exchange it and become even more insecure. So looking at food, water, and energy for resilient landscapes and livelihoods. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So very quick, I'm sorry we cannot really collect any more questions, but I will invite you to reach out to our speakers after these sessions, this session. Very quick reaction from the panel, 30 seconds to address some of these very important questions. Thank you. There you go, Alistair.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, go for it,
Thank you
David.
very much. Yeah, the question on the future of refugees. Yeah, we do understand there's a lot of geopolitical changes in the region and also globally. But the most important thing is to look at the global refugee compact that was entered between member states of the UN on how to share the responsibility of hosting the forcibly displaced in their respective countries. And the compact still holds. And we believe that the member states are going to continue to adhere to what they ascribed to. And so far, so good. And yeah, we still hope it will continue to hold. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, David, for being very succinct to the point. Fantastic. For the rest of the answers, please do reach out to our panelists after this session. Okay, we are reaching out the end of this fantastic and very important discussion. So thanks a lot for your engagement. Just a few words on my side to summarize in a way what we have discussed. I think we all agree that there's a lot of work that has been done. We've heard all the stories for the very difficult situation in Sudan, Somalia, Kenya, many stories, the many case studies that we brought here. But there's a lot of work that needs still to be done. There's a lot that is needed, especially in fragile conflict affected settings. And we all know that our work as a researcher, policymakers, practitioners across the entire HDP nexus becomes very, very difficult in some of these instances. And I want to refer to what our colleague Nigist mentioned before regarding Sudan, where there is a lot of much more work that needs to be done in conflict settings, much more negotiation, much more talks. It takes time to deliver the usual assistance. So many more challenges in these settings. But we all agree that it's now more than ever critical to really come together, as Alistair was saying, come and talk to us. Let's share ideas to leverage our respective comparative advantage to scale research and innovation in a much more efficient, somehow cost-efficient way. In this funding landscape and the situation that we all know, we all agree that we need to do more with less, and all the principles that we have mentioned, we've heard today of effectiveness, timely, inclusive, sustainable action, policies, finance, anticipatory work, making sure that we actually use our partnership to be more sustainable. Also in the climate action work, as Alistair from DRC as mentions, are very, very critical. And this is not only because in this context, we need to do not harm, but we need to really aim to do more, to actually contribute with our research, policy, and finance to produce core benefits for peace and stability. And with all of this, I would like to pass it over to Tess Morris, an advisor with the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, leading the research portfolio on building resilience in fragile conflict-affected settings. Over to you, Tess. Thank you.
Thanks, Grazia. I'll try and be quick. I don't want to stand between people and their coffee. But thank you for having me, and thank you for such a wonderful discussion and all the panel members today. I think first reflection is that it's really hard to get this diverse set of people in a room, and it's going to be imperative that this collection of people across all disciplines, humanitarian development, peace, core research, continue to get together to generate the ideas that are so necessary for us to be able to address the really significant challenges that are ahead of us, I'd just like to pull out a couple of things from the FFS work stream that I think are really important to highlight, but I won't repeat anything that anyone said. Capacity development and partnerships are going to be absolutely essential, and understanding what rigorous but maybe non-traditional research methods we can draw on to understand what coping strategies are already in place and how we enhance those is going to be absolutely imperative. And I think we've spoken quite a lot about co-design, and I would love for us to get to a point of co-ownership, as has been mentioned. I think that that's really, really important. Also, the whole cycle approach of the FFS program, and particularly the Fragility, Conflict and Migration legacy project within it, is a really important opportunity to understand not only how we do no harm, but how we also reinforce through every stage of intervention in crises contexts to make sure that we are building a long-term resilience for these communities. And then also integration and how we are learning for the benefit of the other components within the FFS piece. But also, I think that in FCAS contexts, we are looking at the most resilient people. We are looking at building the most resilient food systems, and that translates to all other food systems. And I want to see us be able to take the learning from this area and apply it to the wider work of the CG and also delivery partners and other research organizations as well. I think that that's imperative. And then I'll just leave it with three kind of key takeaways from me and the position that I sit in, which I appreciate is different to the researchers in the room or some of the other actors. One, the development landscape is rapidly changing. We can't hide from it. We're going to have to learn to adapt to it. Grazia mentioned doing more with less. You're going to be bored of that phrase, I imagine, if you're not already. And it impacts everybody, and I appreciate that. And there is definitely a space where we need to talk about what that impact means for people and how we may not be able to do more with less. Second is that doesn't mean the need for this research goes away. In fact, it means that it's more important than ever. We need to be able to bring together actors from across the humanitarian development and peace nexus. We need to be investing in the next round of innovations that help us deliver really high impacts in these spaces where the context is often challenging. And then thirdly, which is slightly more optimistic, which is that we're actually at a hinge point for development. And there is a real opportunity that the thought leaders in this room, the research expertise, the knowledge, the technological savviness that I personally don't hold, can actually drive really positive change for the better and avoid maladaptation of a system that's currently no longer fit for purpose. So I think that there are a few takeaways. And then my final piece is I'm going to actually shamelessly rob something that was said in the FFS panel yesterday from a colleague from WFP, which is that research should produce results for affected communities. Research should not be an end in itself, but should identify what does and doesn't work so that those in the position to respond can do so in a way that is evidence-based and have the impact that is desired. And I think that that's really, really important. So when we leave this room today, let's be talking to each other and understanding what those partnerships will look like to be able to transition from research into action. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Gus. Great points. Fantastic closing remarks also on the positive note. So thanks a lot for that. Now for more closing remarks from Jo Swinin, the Director General of IFPRI. Over to you, Yo. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And thanks to everybody who is here today. I'm actually extremely pleased to see this event taking place here, all the comments that I've heard and from the various partners in this event. I just want to very briefly, a few seconds, reflect on the history of this thing. And the fact that we are here today was not evident if you go back. In 2021, when we came up with the proposal, the idea to organize a research initiative within the CGIAR on this issue, there was a lot of hesitation around that, okay, from the various partners involved. There was very mixed reactions. Some were very enthusiastic, but there was also a feeling among part of the CGIAR community that this is not really something, that this was important, but not something that the CGIAR should get involved in. For me, this was never, it was always a no-brainer. We should do this. If you look back at the history of food security and hunger in the world has made a tremendous progress between the 1980s roughly and 2015 in reducing hunger and poverty in the world. But over the last decade, we've seen not only a stabilization of this thing, but actually a turnaround. Okay, there's been a structural shift over the last decade in hunger in the world. And there's a number of reasons for that, but the significant part of it is conflict and fragility. Okay, and so, if you look, for example, on the conflict displaced people in the world, they were roughly around 40 million people on average. There's always been conflicts in the world, right? Between 1990 and 2015. Now this has tripled. We're on more than 100 million people who are displaced. So just signaling that this is actually getting worse rather than getting better. And of course, that if you think about food security, that's really where it is concentrated, the most extreme forms of food security. So addressing this, if we want to, as a CGIAR, address food security, contribute to a solution there, we have to address this explicitly. And so we have also seen in the reaction then when we went through with the research initiative on fragility, conflict, and migration, also from the donor community, there was heterogeneous responses. Some were hesitant for the reason that I explained, but a number of them really stepped up and said that this is really very important. So I did with here also big thanks from the donors and particularly also on our partners, where we heard from very much just now in engaging on this. And of course, Katrina, Sandra, Peter, Gracia have done an amazing job in managing this when it was, designing the initiative and then basically managing it and now transitioning it in the science program. If you think about resilience strategy, it really has three components, right? One is preventing. The best crisis is the one that never happens. Okay, so really that's where information collection, prediction, forecasting, all these things come in. The second component is preparing, okay? If it's going to come, be ready for it, okay? That's where insurance systems come in. That's where finance comes in. This is where a number of the other things that we discussed here and heard about today comes in. And then, of course, the third component is when it happens, react or act. Okay, that's where financial support systems come in, social protection, which was emphasized by several speakers, and finance and information goes through the whole thing, okay? And I think the message which came very clear from the last panel was you need partnership, okay? You can't just do research, even if you have perfect evidence, etc. It has to be taken up, be turned into programs, and this means partnership from very different organizations and different structures, and including the government, particularly on things like social protection, obviously. An interesting point, which I thought, which was made quite forcefully, probably by Sheila and Kumika, was on the data sharing. Researchers have the tendency of keeping data to themselves. This is their raw material, right? This is how they can make publications, and at the same time claim authorships once they do something with it. In this type of environment, we may have to do the opposite. Okay, data are so scarce, so we have to let it go, bring it out. People really need it. And authorship can be a risky or even a counterproductive thing in some of these environments. So there again, I think also as research community, we have to think about these things, what's the best way going forward. So in concluding, I'm extremely happy to see all this come together. I was really pleased to hear all the comments also from the, let's say, the demand side of the research coming together with the supply side. In a way, we would wish that this research is not necessary, is no longer necessary going forward. But unfortunately, the way the world is functioning right now, the way it's going, I think it's going to be needed more than ever. So we need all the partners which are together in the room and also beyond the room to come together. And from the CGIAR leadership, I can say we are very strongly committed to support this and engage on this type of research going forward, and innovation, obviously, and the partnership. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. And with this session is closed. Thanks a lot for your interest and participation in this discussion. And I do encourage you to reach out to any of the panelists and any of us for further questions. Thank you.
Around for the rest of the day, or you have to get back to the I have to go back to the office. No, I'm also having to. I'm looking for you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Upstairs? Yeah.
Sorry.
Mebo. Nice.
Middle of it. You're the main speaker.
Yeah.
I'm on the panel just after. It's great to meet you. Fantastic. I think you're great. Absolutely. Yes.
I love your participation. Thank you very much. Sorry, thank you.
Because we need many case studies with different actors.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to do something later because